Welcome to YBR Folktale. I am Sharik Mahmood Khan and I am thrilled to have you join me today as we journey through the magic of ancient tales. Tonight's story is one of the most tragic and beautiful love story ever told, the timeless tale of Sassi and Punnu. Set in the heart of Sindh and Balochistan, this is the story of two souls born by an unbreakable love, a love so powerful it defeats kingdoms, fate, and even death itself. But as we will see, true love doesn't always have a happy ending. So sit back, relax, and let the sand of time carry you through this emotional journey of passion, sacrifice, and eternal devotion. The story began Sassi and Punnu in the golden sands of Sen, where the Indus River once whispered secrets to the wind and the skies painted 100 hues at dusk. A royal prophecy hung in silence over the palace of Bambor. It was a time of peace and abundance, yet the palace of kings Idam was heavy with longing, a longing for a child. The queen prayed to the stars, bathed in moonlight, and offered flowers to the river every morning. And then one fateful night, a sheikh from the highlands arrived at the court with a glint in his eye and mystery in his voice. He whispers, "A daughter will be born under the sign of Venus, one who will enhance hearts and awaken storms. Her fate will be her glory and her sorrow." True to the prophecy, a girl was born, with eyes that held the deep of oceans, and a smile that melted even the hardest of heart. The name her Sassi, meaning moonlight, for her presence brought calmness and grace, but the court astrologers, with grim expressions, warned the king, "She is no ordinary child. Her beauty shall be both a blessing and a curse." Fearful of the future, the king made a fateful decision. Rather than raising her amidst political games and threats of forced marriages, the entrusted her to a humble washerman and his wife in the outskirts of Bhambor, a family with pure hearts who would raise her away from the royal eye. Only a few trusted advisers knew of her true lineage. Years passed. Sassi grew like a desert rose, wild, radiant, and unafraid, thought desert in simple clothes. She carried the elegance of queens, her laughter echoed in the streets, and her kindness became legends. Birds seemed to follow her as if drawn to her spirit, and even the harshest traders would soften their voice in her presence. By the time she turned 18, Bambor spoke of no one else. Travelers, merchants, and poets came from distant lands hoping to glimpse the girl whose beauty revealed the full moon. And yet, Sasi's heart remained untouched. She often dreamed of a face, a strong distance, yet familiar, riding across sands dunes with eyes full of longing. The dreams grew clearer, and each morning she would wake with a strange ache in her chest. Somewhere she felt someone was calling her, someone she hadn't yet met. Her foster parents grew concerned. Sassi, her mother, asked one day, "Why do you stare at the horizon every night?" "I feel as if the wind carried someone's name," she replied, her voice barely a whisper, "and I must know who it belongs to." At the same time, in the rugged lands of Kutch Makran, across deserts and hills, a young prince named Punnu prepared for a journey that would change his fate. But that's a tale of another night. If Sassi touch your hearts, then don't just listen. Hit the like button and show someone love. Your once click keep the timeless legends alive. Far away from the lush lands of sin, in the rugged and wind-carved mountains of Kutch Makran in Balochistan, a different world excited. The skies were clear, the wind fiercer, and the people proud and unyielding. Among them lived a young prince whose name carried weight and wonder, Punnu, son of King Arijam. Born of noble blood and raised with a warrior's training, Punnu was more than just royalty. He was a living legend in his land, with eyes like burning coal and a voice that could command silence or still battle cries. He carried the pride of generation, but beneath the armor and power lay a spirit restless and wild, longing for something greater than politics and tribal honor. Punnu had everything palaces, riches, loyal warriors, and even poets who sang his praises. But still he felt incomplete, as if a chapter of his destiny had not yet been written. Often he would ride alone across the silent dunes, speaking only to the star and the wind. One night, during a rare desert storm, an old mystic visited the court of King Arijam. He carried with him tales from across the land of sin, of Hambor, and of a girl whose beauty and grace could bend the heavens. Her name was Sassi. The court laughed, thinking it just another bad tale. But Punnu listened. Something inside him stirred. That name Sassi sounded familiar, as if whispered to him in forgotten dreams. That very night he dreamed of a girl in white standing by the banks of a river, calling his name with eyes full of longing. By morning his mind was made. I must go to Bhambor and announce to his father. The king's brows furrowed. Why Bhambor? That land is beneath your status. Its people are merchants and river folk. But Punnu gaze didn't falter. I don't seek gold or conquest there, father. I seek what my heart was already choosing. And so, against the will of his tribe, Punnu set out on a journey cloaked in mystery and fate, dressed as a trader and accompanied by a handful of trusted guards. He traveled for days, crossing jagged rocks, endless sand dunes, and silent nights until the air began to smell of river breeze and sweet trade spice, the sing of sin. He reached Bhambor, a thriving town alive with markets, laughter, and stories. It was here, in a bustling bazaar filled with color and sound, that destiny moved with peace. Punu wandered the lanes, searching not with his eyes, but with his heart. And then he saw her. She was standing near a fountain, her scarf flowing in the wind, speaking gently to a child who had dropped his bread. Her kindness was effortless, her beauty surreal. This was not just a girl of legend, this was Sassi. The world stopped spinning for a moment. Punnu approached, but before he could speak, their eyes met. It was as if the universe itself paused to honor that glance. In that instant, they both knew this was not a meeting of strangers, but the reunion of two souls that had loved each other across lifetimes. Sassi looked away, blushing. Stranger, why do you look at me so? Punnu smiled. Because I have found in you the face that lived in my dreams, and now I must find the words worthy of your ears. She turned to walk away, but something in her made her look back, and when she did, he was still watching, not with arrogance but revenge. Over the next few days, Punnu returned to the bazaar, always finding reasons to be near her. He bought things he didn't need, told jokes to make her laugh, and slowly, like the moon easing into the night sky, he became part of her world. They spoke under the shade of old banyan trees, shared poetry by the river, and laughed like only the truly free can laugh. The townsfolk began to notice the washerman's daughter had captured the heart of a mysterious nobleman, but Sassi, wise beyond her years, asked one evening, "Who are you, really, Punnu? Your hands are too clean for a trader, and your words too polished for a common man." He hesitated, then bowed his head. "I am Prince Punnu of Kutch Makaran, but when I am with you, I am just a man hopelessly in love." Sasi's heart raced. Loyalty, her mind spun with doubt and fear, yet her soul whispered, "This is him, the one you were born to love." They held hands under the stars that night, making promises the world would never understand. But far away in the dry land of Kutch Makaran, Punnu's family had already heard rumors, and they were not pleased. What would you do for love? If Sassi and Punnu's story move your heart, drop a comment below and tell us your favorite moments so far. Let's fill the comment section for this timeless love story. The city of Bamboo glistened in the golden sunlight as boats floated gently along the Indus River. Merchants bartered, children played, and the street echoed with the sound of life. But amidst the daily rhythm of the town, something extraordinary was unfolding, a silent storm of emotions stirred by the first true meeting of two destined hearts, Sassi and Punnu. Punnu, disguised as a trader, had arrived only days ago, but already the city's pulse had changed. He wasn't like the other, not in the way he spoke or the way he carried himself. Even when wrapped in the robes of a merchant, he looked every bit the prince he truly was. Yet he walked humble, eye searching, heart already stolen by a girl he had only seen once near the market fountain. Sassi, daughter of a washerman by name but a princess by faith, had felt something unusual too. When their eyes had first met, it was as thought a lost memory had returned, not a stranger gaze, but a mirror of her own longing. And from that one glance, something scared had been set in motion. Over the next few days, Punnu returned to the market again and again, each time hoping to steal a moment near Sassi. Sometimes he bought fruit he didn't need or clothes he would never wear just to be in her presence. She noticed, of course she did, but pretend not to. Still her heart fluttered when he approached. One day he stood beside her near the spice stall and whispered softly, "Do you believe in fate, Sassi?" She turned, startled that he knew her name. "You speak as though we have met before," she said. a caution smile teasing her lips. In dreams, he replied, long before I set foot in Bambor, and thus began their quiet courtship, meeting near the river, exchanges of poetry and tales, stolen glances when the world was not looking. They were careful, for both knew her cruel tongues could be and how dangerous love could become when he world disapproved. They shared their thoughts, their hopes, and eventually their secrets. One evening, under the soft glow of an oil lamp, Punnu revealed his truth. I am not a trader, he confused, his voice trembling with vulnerable. I am Prince Punnu, son of King Arijam of Kachh Makran. Sachi's eyes widened, her hand froze. Silence filled the air between them. A prince, she whispered, the words catching in her throat, and I am a washerman's daughter. You are more than that, Punnu said, stepping closer. Your soul is noble, your heart is braver than any I have known in my eyes. You are a queen. Her breath caught. She had feared his moment, feared her world leave her once. He realized who she was, but instead he brought her closer to the star. From that day on, their love grew stronger. It was no longer a secret stolen in shadows. It was a fire blazing against the wind of fate. But even the fiercest love cannot remain hidden forever. Word began to spread of a handsome outsider who visited the fisherman's daughter too often, whose hands were too clean for a trader, whose tongue spoke like royalty. The people of Bambor whispered in curiosity and awe. Some admired the pair, others grew jealous, especially the governor, a powerful man who had long captained Sassi for himself. He smote Punnu. I hear tell, the governor said, his tone sharp, of a stranger who dares fall for a girl beneath his status. Punnu stood tall. I don't see status, only love, and I will marry Sassi with your blessing or without it. The governor's eyes burned, but he did not object. He could not, for even he knew that love of his nature was not so easily broken. But far away in Kachh Makran, Punnu's brother had caught wind of his rebellions. They were furious. Our brother wants to shame our blood. One spat. He will marry a washerman's daughter over a tribal princess. We cannot allow this. And so a plan was formed, a plan of trickery and betrayal. Back in Bambor, love was blooming like jasmine in spring. Punnu approached Sasi's foster father with respect and humility. He asked for her hand in marriage. He told washerman, started by the princess truth, hesitated. If your love is true, prove it before the world marry her, not in secret, but in light. Punnu agreed. Let the world know, let our love be a fire they cannot extinguish. Preparations began quietly for a small but meaningful ceremony. Sassi was radiant with joy. The city buzzed with anticipation. But then came the night of betrayal. Punnu was invited to a private feast by travelers coming to be old friends from Kutch. Sassi, unaware, kissed his forehead and told him to return before sunset. Don't stay long, she whispered. The star feel restless tonight. Punnu smiled and promised to return soon. He never did. The feast was a trap. His brothers were waiting. They drugged his wine, bound him while he slept, and before dawn dragged him away across the sand back to Kachmakran. When Sassi arrived at the river bank that evening, the sun had already dipped below the horizon. The sky was dark and her prince was gone. Sassi waited all night, first by the river, then outside its dwelling, then in the market, but Punnu was nowhere. Days passed. Each day she searched, each night she cried, but no message came, no sign, no clue. People began to whisper again that he had abandoned her, that a prince would never marry someone like her. The same mouth that once admired now mocked. But Sassi knew, deep in her bones, she knew something was wrong. He had not left her by choice. Her dreams were now haunted by visions of sandstorms and distant cries. She couldn't sleep, she couldn't eat. Her soul was on fire. And one night, beneath the weeping moon, she stood before the river and vowed, if he does not return, I will fire him myself. I will cross the burning desert, face the wrath of fate, but I will not let this love die in silence. Her journey had begun. Don't keep this story to yourself. If Sassi could cross desert for love, you can cross just one button of share. Let your friend, family, and fellow dreamers feel the magic of this timeless and spread the legend, spread the love. Tap that share button now before Sassi's voice faded into the sand of time. The town of Bambor had gone quiet. The same street that once echoed with the laughter of love now lay heavy with silence. The market no longer felt vibrant. Even the river seemed to flow a little slower, its water dull and still, as if mourning the absence of Punnu. But the edge in Bambor was nothing compared to the storm inside Sassi. She waited for hours, then days, then weeks. She clutched into hope with trembling fingers, refusing to believe the whispers of betrayal that now surrounded her like shadows. They said Punnu had played with her heart, that he had returned to his royal family, leaving behind the washerman's daughter like a forgotten tale. But Sassi knew better. She could feel it is in her soul. He didn't leave her, he was taken. One night, as Sassi lay beneath the star, her eyes swollen with tears and sleep, she saw him in a dream. Punnu stood in the middle of a scorching desert, bounded in chain, his lip cracked, his eyes bleeding. Sassi, find me. She awoke with a gasp, drenched in sweat. That was all she needed. Sassi rose before dawn, wrapped herself in plain shell, and with nothing but courage in her heart, she whispered to her foster father, bless me, I am going to bring him back. He clutched her hand, torn between fear and pride, but he knew there was no stopping a woman in love, not when her soul had already started the journey, and so she left Bhambor behind. The moment she stepped beyond the city walls, the world changed. The friendly faces were gone, the fertile lands gave way to dust and thorns. The road ahead was the desert of Balochistan, known as the land of thirst, where even the wind cut like blades and the sun roared like a beast. Sassi walked barefoot, no horse, no companion, no map, only a memory of a prince's smile, of whispered poetry, and the promise they had made bent the star. Every step burned, the sand was fire, her feet cracked, her lip dried, her eyes squinted against the white glare of endless dunes. But Sassi walked on. When hunger called at her, he ate wild berries. When thirst scorched her throat, she sipped dew from rocks. When sleep called, she lay under acacia trees, if she could find any, with her arms wrapped around her heart so it wouldn't break in the night. The desert was not empty, it whispered. Sometimes Sassi heard her name on the wind as if the earth itself mourned for her. Other times she heard voices, echoes of her past, of her parents, of the townspeople who laughed when she declared she find her lost love. And sometimes, just sometimes, she heard Punnu calling out to her, begging her to keep going. But the desert didn't forgive, it tested her. One evening she came upon a band of traveling gypsies. They saw her torn clothes, blistered feet, and bloodshot eyes. One woman tried to stop her. Child, where are you going in this state? To catch Makran, Sassi replied, her voice dry and broken. The gypsy gasped that it's week away, and the sand will eat you alive before you get there. Then let them, she whispered. I must try. The gypsies gave her a little food and water. One gave her sandals, another a pouch of dates, and with blessing in the wind, Sassi walked on. Days blurred into night, reality slipped away. Sassi began talking to stars, to the moon, to Punnu. Do you remember our promise? She would say, stumbling through the dunes. You said nothing would separate us, not even death. I am coming, I am coming. But her body was giving up. The head and plead her skin. Her feet were open wounds. Her bones ached with every breath. She collapsed one night under the shadow of jagged rock. Her body refused to rise. Buzzards circled overhead. Was this the end? But then a breeze came, cool, gentle, out of place. She opened her eyes, and before her, faint, distant, blurred by heat waves, stood a hill, a strange one, not like the dunes. It looked familiar. It looked like the place in her dream. Could it be? Some morning, every last shade of sand, Sassi crawled her hand, dug into the sand. His knees bleed, but she moved. She reached the foot of the hill, she cried out, Punnu, I am here. But there was no answer, no figure running to greet her, no prince in chains waiting to the save, just the wind, just silence. Her vision blurred, her heart began to slow. The pain once unbelievable was now fading, replaced by a strange warmth, a lightness. She looked up at the sky one last time and whispered, wait for me, Punnu, in the next life, if not this one. And with that, Sassi's breath faded into the wind of the desert. Some say the earth, warning her sacrifice, cracked open and swallowed her, so her soul would be spared the cruelty of the world. Others say her spirit still roams the desert, following the breeze, calling for the one she loved beyond death. Sassi's journey becomes more than just a tale of heartbreak. It becomes a symbol of strength, of sacrifice, of a love that no storm could erase. In every grain of Balochistan sands, her footsteps remain a whisper of a girl who defeated kingdoms, who challenged fate, and whose love became eternal. Love like this fade, and neither should the stories. If Sassi and Punnu tales touch your heart, then don't just watch, become part of the journey. Subscribe now to travel through timeless love, haunting legends, an unforgettable folklore, a new story awaits, and who knows, the next one might change your heart forever. Had swallowed the light, and the sands had consumed Sassi's final breath. The echoes of her last word faded into the wind, but across the mountain, in the kingdom of Kechmakran, Punnu remained oblivious to the tragedy that had befallen his beloved. For days he had wandered through his own prison of grief. His heart was shattered relic of the love he had once held so dear. Locked away in his royal chambers, he had done nothing but wait for a letter, a message, any sign that Sassi will still alive, still fighting for him. But the letter had stopped, the messengers had returned empty handed, and now whispers of her disappearance reached his ears. Punnu's soul screamed he couldn't breathe. How could he live in a world where the love of his life had broken lost, as if she saw nothing more than a fleeting dreams? It was the cruelest of ironies that the very love that had given him purpose was now the one thing that would bring his heart to ruin. On the eve of his disappear, Punnu found himself standing by the edge of a cliff, gazing into the endless expanse of the desert, where he once thought he could find her, where he once thought he could escape to. It was there, in the vast emptiness, that his eyes fell upon something, a figure. At first he thought it was a mirage, but as the figure drew closer, his heart stopped. It was her, Sassi. No, I couldn't be. How could it be? She had left, vanished into the wind. He was gone. But the deep of his grief, he began to see her. Her face, her eyes, those familiar lips that had once whispered promise of eternity. Her reached out a trembling hand, his voice choking on the air, calling her name, Sassi, but there was no answer. The figure shimmered in the desert heat, like an illusion, fading, flickering, until it became a part of the dust itself. And then he remembered the whispers, the echoes of his beloved last word. Wait for me, Punnu, in the next life, if not this one. He fell to his knees, his voice rising to the heavens in agonist screams. The universe seemed to mock him, a love so pure, so strong, now torn apart by fate. No, Sassi, you promised, he cried, his voice hoarse and broken. Days passed, weeks, Punnu's heart did not heal. It was as if the air around him had turned to ash. In his solitude, he began to wander across the same desert, across hills where he had once dreamed of a life with Sassi. But his time, it was different. Every step felt like a curse, a reminder of what he had lost. His kingdom called to him, his family begged him to return, but there was no place for him there anymore. His soul belonged to the winds. His spirit had been forever tied to Sassi. On the night of full moon, Punnu came to the same hill where he had last seen her, the hill where he had seen the figure of his lost love in the desert. He collapsed upon the earth, tears streaming down his face, his hands clutching the sand as if he could somehow hold on to the remains of his past life. In his final moment, Punnu understood the love that had once brought him joy had now become his storm, and there was no escape. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Punnu rose to his feet, his gaze, once full of life, was now empty. A single tear traced down his cheek. In the distance, he saw something, a silhouette emerging from the desert mist. Sassi, no, it couldn't be. This time, it was not a dream. He called out to her, his voice raw, desperate. Sassi, but as he took a step forward, the world around him seemed to fade. He fell to his knee, clutching his chest as his heart gave its final beat. With his last breath, he whispered her name, Sassi, and then the desert was silent. The sands whispered, but this time they carried not the weight of sorrow, but the echo of eternal love. The story of Sassi and Punnu spread far and wide, becoming a legend that would never fade. Their love, once bright and full of promise, was now a tale of sorrow, but one that would remain immortal in the hearts of the people. Generations would tell the story of two lovers whose heart beat as one, bound by fate, separated by the cruel winds of time, but forever united in spirit. Their love was not just a memory, it was a legacy, a flame that burned brighter with every retelling, every whispered word. And though they had died, their love lived on in every breeze that swept across the desert, in every whispered prayer, in every heart that believed in the power of eternal devotion. If Sassi and Punnu's love moved you, like if their devotion still burned in your heart, comment below what the greatest love you have ever known. Share this tale with someone who need to hear it. Let their love live forever. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button because true love never ends. It's only a wait for the next story.